Hello, fellow leggers. Thank you for joining us once again. It's been a while, leggers, but we are back. We're in the Midlands at the Curve Theatre in Leicester.
And we're here to see a stage adaptation of an Oscar-nominated film from 1985, and that is My Beautiful Laundrette.
So stick around to hear all of our thoughts.
Find out how many stars,
Whether it's break a leg
or leg it. I've got to say I'm quite excited for this one, and I have to have a fight with myself to not get too hyped up about things.
A fight with yourself.
I'm excited for a couple of reasons. I'm excited for the piece, but I'm also excited to be back at the theatre, and I think a break has done me good.
Oh, really?
I really do.
Reignited the love of theatre.
You get a bit of theatre
saying?
fatigue if you go like 4 or 5 times a week, like we have some weeks. But
Yes.
it's really nice to be back, and it's nice to be back, firstly at the Curve, and secondly, seeing an LGBTQ piece.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know it. I've heard of it.
What do you need me to
I
fill
know
you in?
the film had Daniel Day-Lewis.
It did have Daniel Day-Lewis, yes.
And that's as much as I know.
Okay, have you ever seen the film then?
No.
No. Do you know what? I've never seen it either, which is, I don't know if that's a good place to come from because we've nothing to compare it to. Or maybe it's not because it's considered to be quite a classic now in the LGBT world. But anyway, the original writer, Hanif Kureishi, has now adapted it for the stage. The play is a culture clash comedy set in London during the Thatcher years and tells the story of young British Pakistani Omar, whose ambition it is to turn his uncle's run-down laundrette into a thriving business.
Okay.
Now, after being confronted by a fascist gang, Omar recognises the ringleader as his old school friend and uses their history to diffuse the situation. And as they renovate the laundrette together, an unlikely love blossoms between the two of them.
Okay.
Now,
Sounds interesting.
It does. It's here at the Curve, but by the time you see this review, it won't be.
Okay.
It'll be out on the road.
It is going elsewhere.
Yeah,
okay,
it's visiting the
great.
Leeds Playhouse, Everyman, Cheltenham, and the Coventry Belgrade, as it's a co-production between all 4 theatres.
Okay.
It's also hitting the Birmingham Rep, which
Brilliant.
isn't a co-production, but at least it's staying in the Midlands or coming back
Absolutely.
here. Coventry and Birmingham, actually. So if you're in the Midlands, you're in for a treat. Directed by Nikolai Foster, who's the artistic director here at Curve, and lighting by the wonderful Ben Cracknell, who
Brilliant.
I adore.
Yeah.
This production features songs from someone else I adore, from the Pet Shop Boys, ladies and gentlemen, who, let's be honest here, you're not a massive fan.
I'm not a massive fan of the 80s in general, so it's do you know what? But let's not get into that. I'm not going to let that sway any biases or opinions of mine. When you say songs, is it a musical?
No, it's not a musical.
It's got a soundtrack.
It has a soundtrack.
But it's set in the 80s and that's when they're big.
Yes,
Okay.
and it includes
Right.
2 brand new compositions by Tennant and Lowe themselves, specifically for this show, this production.
Wow.
2 hours 30, including an interval, so we'll be
Okay.
catching up with you for a 30-second interval breakdown.
And as usual, stick around to the end to hear all of our thoughts and find out how many stars. Fellow leggers, it's the interval, which means it's time for the break a leggers.
30-second interval breakdown. What do you think so
so
far? You want to
far?
start with me?
Yes, I do.
I think thematically it's really interesting. I think it's resonant even by today's standards for something in the 80s, saying stuff about immigration and conformity and culture. I like the production. I think it's nice to look at. I'm not bowled over by the story. We'll see how it goes.
I also think it's quite relevant, especially in today's Brexit age, a clash of cultures. I'm enjoying the production. I think there's a lot of creativity in the lighting, in the way it's moving as an ensemble piece, and lots of people playing many different parts.
Well, we've come to the end of My Beautiful Laundrette, and I suppose it begs the question, was it all fur coat and no knickers?
Oh, was it?
Oh,
Indeed, what a
was it?
link. What did you make of it?
Do you know what? I didn't love it, and I really wanted to love this. Reading the blurb, it had all the right elements. It had a gay love story against a cultural a background which didn't support that, where there was no love. It had these racial undertones where there was a rising of fascism, and it billed itself as a cultural comedy. There wasn't a single laugh in the whole entire piece.
There was the
Where
odd
was
subtle
the
laugh.
No, I didn't even titter.
I could see
didn't
that it
even
was
titter.
in some of the text, but it didn't come through. So
Yeah.
I know where you're coming from there.
Well, that's
Okay.
the point. It's got to
Yeah.
be sold. You
It
know,
wasn't,
there was no selling in any of the comedy, and that was a real shame because I think a piece like this that is dealing with such dark undertones needs to laugh at itself from time to time, and it wasn't. It was just stodgy. That's how it felt. It felt like a thick, soapy soup.
A thick soapy soup. For me, I thought the star of this is in the production. I think it looks great. I think the lighting is stunning.
It's
Can
Ben
we talk about the
Cracknell.
light? Is it Ben Cracknell?
Yeah, I mean, he is an absolute
It's
marvel. Heathers recently. I mean,
beautiful
he
for
does
the
the
studio
pantos
space.
at the Palladiums. I've always loved Ben's work, and yet again, he goes to show he's a master of anything that moves in a single direction.
So that
Straight
coupled
lines,
with
guys.
the set design, I also thought was really nice. The whole
Set design.
stylizing of
Yep.
it, the neon lights,
Grey
the silver.
smart.
It reminded me a little bit of the recent Sweet Charity at the Dom, actually. That
Yeah.
silver theme, but it worked really well here.
Less Warhol and more sort of, I almost felt like the Berlin Wall at times, you know, with that backdrop of those washing
Yes.
machines set into concrete. It had that real feel of the sort of brutalism of Germany in the 1980s. That's how I felt. Very Euro, sort of Euro trash, graffiti driven. I did love the design.
So I think the production shots are going to look great, coupling together the lighting.
I'm guessing you're putting some in.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
the lighting combined with the set, it looks visually great. And I loved the way it moved. It moved really well. The cast were moving the set around, very ensemble. The cast play many characters. As for the piece, it did leave me a bit short. I could tell the elements, the core concepts were right and were there, seeing this whole cultural side that we've seen in other pieces, such
Yeah,
as
like
East
East
is
is
East.
East, yeah.
Absolutely. But then meshing that with racism and also the whole LGBT theme, but it just didn't. It didn't
land,
It didn't
did it?
land. There's
It
something
has
about
these-
the landing,
Yeah, there
the
are-
right elements and ingredients.
They're floating around.
But in the baking
They're
of the cake, it's
swimming-
got a soggy bottom.
They're swimming
That's
around in
it.
the washing machine, really, but you're never coming into focus, which is the real problem. And I've got to say, some of that was down to the pacing. Some of it was down to not letting certain moments sit, not having these beautiful moments of intimacy or vulnerability.
The believability.
It was
I was lacking
completely
elements of believability at times.
powering through
Yeah.
all of those moments with not enough stillness in order to just make sense of them all. And for me, it was just that focus, and I needed them to slow the hell down.
I just didn't quite care enough. I could see why I would want to care for individual characters, and why I guess in the original movie that this moment would be really touching, and that would be a real like moment, and that would be a ooh moment. But there's almost a two-dimensional aspect to many of the characters that was just one plane, one field, no nuances, and I think that's where it was for me.
Interesting. I've got to say the music shines for me because I love the Pet Shop Boys,
It
and
fits
that's
the
sort
piece,
of,
it fits the time,
so
fits
well.
the neon lighting,
Yeah.
fits the disco.
And there are a couple of great ones, especially Angelic Thug at the end of Act 1. I can't wait to listen to that in its entirety. I mean, I think they're masters, Tennant and Lowe. I think there's a poetry to their work that you don't seem to be able to grasp. You know how some people can read a poem and just not understand the meaning? I feel like that's you with their work.
Oh, I understand the meaning. It just does nothing for me.
Right, let's move on to some of the performances now.
But I liked it in this. I thought it was very fitting.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
it's my issue.
You want to still talk about the Pet Shop Boys? This is the most I've been able to
music.
get. This is the most enthusiasm I've been able to get out of you about their work. This is
80s
amazing.
music, it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't mean I can't appreciate it in the piece, and I thought it worked. They did some good stuff.
Got to say, by and large, I just felt that the cast weren't given enough to play with, but there were a couple of standout moments for me. I thought Omar Malik, as the character of Omar, was a real sensation, a real treat. He was probably the one that seemed to have the greatest grasp on the inwardness of his character, and they're trying to come to terms with where he belongs in the world that he now lives in. He's been born into a culture for which he's got his whole family telling him he needs to be more Asian, yet society is telling him to be a Brit, and I felt that.
I thought he had a real sensitivity to him. Possibly one of the more believable performances in the piece that I found. He suited that well.
Yeah, loved him a lot.
He looked great as well.
Yeah,
both
I
of
mean,
the leads, they get their shirts
they're
off.
beautiful
and,
men, aren't they? I mean, let's
they're beautiful
face
men.
it. They are
Him,
beautiful
so
men.
Omar playing Omar, and also
Johnny Fiennes playing Johnny.
Playing Johnny. How
I
about
don't
that?
know if that had any bearing on the casting here.
And he looks great as well.
Yeah, he does look great.
But let's talk about their talent on stage as actors as well.
Yeah.
I thought he played that stereotypical brutish male well.
Great. And Paddy Daly in the role of Genghis and Dick O'Donnell. Lovely to look at. And also, I loved his thuggish, brutish skinheadness of it, the swagger that he had. His physicality was really good. It wasn't just in what he was saying, it was his throwing his whole body into those lines, which I thought was an absolute treat.
Okay.
I will also love to pull out Balvinder Sopal as Bilkus and Moose. Break a Legger's nomination, guys.
What?
I know we're saying that
Best
we're sort of
supporting
struggling
actress?
with the best supporting actress in a play. I know we're saying struggling with the piece, but I would say if you've come to see this for one reason and one reason alone, it's Balvinder's performance, because the two characters that she plays are so polar opposite to one another. Also, she just had this believability. I had to question at times whether it was still her.
Oh.
Like, I literally was so enthralled by her performance as both of these really distinctive characters that I would watch her in anything now. I think she is a star.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. And as I say, the rest of the cast, they play multiple characters pretty much, so they do get quite a bit to play with.
Yeah.
It's a very busy track.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. I think we've come to the end then.
Okay, you're probably wondering how many stars we're going to give My Beautiful Laundrette, but before we do, make sure you hit subscribe if you want to hear more of our honest reviews,
Yeah.
up and down the country, catching tours here, there, and
And also,
everywhere.
can I say, when we're not doing these videos, we're up to other stuff, guys. So if you look over on our Instagram, we give you a sort of behind-the-scenes peek at our lives. It's not just the theatre stuff. Let's peel back the curtain.
Anyway.
Guys, I'm showing you now. It's me peeling back the
So,
curtain.
how many stars are we going to give My Laundrette? Currently playing here at
My
the...
Beautiful Laundrette,
My
nonetheless.
Beautiful Laundrette. Also going out on a little bit of a tour.
Yeah.
We are going to give...
Three.
3 stars for this piece.
Yeah, do you know what? It has some interesting moments in terms of a fantastic design production and fantastic creative elements. I can tell the director, I can tell Nikolai has a great vision for how to make stuff visually stimulating. It lacked pace at times. Has it made you want to see the movie?
It probably has, to see how different it is, and I applaud the Curve and what they're doing in bringing this type of piece to this type of audience.
Absolutely, without
It's something
a doubt.
different, a cultural piece, bringing in a different cast members, bringing in a different topic. It's conversations, and they're connecting that with the community, it seems, because they've got around the whole of the theatre these kind of laundry lines with clothes on and with real positive
messages on there.
that they would have got from, I imagine, through running workshops and stuff. So all of that stuff is great.
We'll always applaud the
So
Curve for what
champion
they
the
are
diversity
trying to do
and that
with
approach.
making theatre accessible to more bloody audiences, to marginalised people, to diverse people. To get
Hola.
them in, we bow down to.
However, in terms of piece for me, it just didn't quite grip me.
But that's just what you think, right?
Totally just what I
And
think.
it's just what I think. What do you think? We'd love to hear from you. Go and see this, form your own opinions, let us know
Definitely.
down below. If I was an Asian man, an Asian gay man, growing up in the 1980s, maybe I'd feel more for it. Maybe.
Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
But you know,
Who
like I
else
say,
feels for it? just that minority, or is there many others?
tell us. We'd love to know. We're the Breaker Leggers.
And we'll catch you again soon.
Bye.